Zanil worked beside her father from sunrise to sunset in the hot, noisy streets of Kumara city. The smell of oil and smoke filled the small garage where engines roared and metal clanged. Her father, Mandla, was known across the neighborhood as a skilled mechanic, a man who could fix anything with his hands, but believed dreams were useless things. Zanil often watched people drive away in cars she helped repair, and imagined herself creating one that bore her name, a car unlike any the world had seen. But every time she mentioned her dream, Mandla would laugh, not with kindness but with disbelief. He told her life was not built on imagination but on survival. One afternoon, the heat was heavy and sweat rolled down her face as she handed her father a wrench. Mandla looked at her, eyes sharp with authority, and said, "You'll never make it without me." His voice was cold, final, like a door closing on hope. Zanil froze, her fingers still covered in grease. Those words sank deep inside her chest, leaving a sting stronger than the burn of the metal she worked with. She wanted to shout that she could do more, that she had ideas bigger than this small garage, but she stayed silent. The weight of his doubt pressed down harder than any tool she had ever lifted. When the customer's taxi drove away, the sound of the engine faded, but her father's words stayed. Zanil sat alone on a wooden bench, staring at her stained hands. They were the hands of a worker, not a dreamer. At least that's what Mandla wanted her to believe. Around her, the noise of Kumara continued. Children laughing, vendors calling out prices, music from the radio. Yet all she could hear was her father's voice echoing inside her mind. That moment became a wound she couldn't forget. Something inside her shifted quietly. She promised herself that one day, she would build something with these same hands. Not just repair another man's car, but create her own. She didn't know when or how, but she knew one thing for sure. His words would not be the end of her story. They would be the reason she began. Zanil spent her nights in silence. The only sound in the room was the scratch of her pencil against paper. The dim light from the flickering bulb swung above her head, casting shaky shadows across the small garage. She sat on the floor beside an old toolbox, her knees pulled close, sketching the shapes of cars that existed only in her mind. Her drawings showed dreams that no one else believed in, sleek engines, smooth curves, and her name written in the corner of every page. When footsteps came near, she quickly folded the papers and hid them deep inside the rusted box, as if they were secrets too fragile for the world to see. Her best friend, Thandi, often stopped by after work, bringing leftover snacks and her usual bright smile. She was the only person who truly saw Zanil's passion. One night, while looking through the sketches, Thandi's eyes widened. "These are amazing," she whispered. Zanil blushed and tried to take the drawings back, but Thandi held on tightly. Without telling her, Thandi scanned one of the designs and sent it to a youth innovation contest she had heard about at her tech hub. She believed the world needed to see what Zanil could do. A few weeks later, Zanil's phone rang. The voice on the other side told her she had been selected as a finalist for the competition. Her heart raced, her hands shook, and for a moment, she couldn't even speak. Someone beyond her father's small garage had noticed her work. For the first time, she felt seen. She ran home, breathless with excitement, ready to share the news with her father. But Mandla only stared at her, wiping his greasy hands on a rag. When she told him about the contest, he let out a short laugh. "Car design? You. Stay where you belong, girl." The words hit harder than she expected. Her smile faded, but her spirit didn't break. That night, Zanil sat under the same flickering light, staring at her sketches again. She realized something. If the world believed in her before her own father did, then maybe she didn't need his approval to move forward. Maybe his doubt would become her drive. Zanil stood in the small room she had grown up in, her eyes red from crying. Another fight with her father had ended with the same painful words, that she was wasting her life chasing dreams that would never feed her. She looked around at the few things she owned, a thin blanket, her worn shoes, and the sketches that carried her hopes. With slow hands, she folded the drawings and slid them into her backpack, careful not to wrinkle the pages. Each one was a piece of her heart, proof that she was meant for more than fixing cars in a dusty corner of Kumara. When she walked into the garage, her father was still working, pretending not to notice her. The sound of his wrench echoed in the air. Zanil waited, hoping for a word to stop her, even a small sign that he cared. But Mandla didn't look up. Without turning, he said in a hard voice, When you fail, don't come back crying. The words hit her like a hammer. She wanted to shout that she wouldn't fail, but her throat felt tight, so she said nothing. She simply adjusted her backpack, took one last look at the garage, and stepped outside. The evening sun was low, painting the street in orange light. As she walked away, dust rose around her feet, mixing with the tears running down her face. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she kept moving. People passed by, busy with their own lives, not knowing that a young woman was leaving everything behind to chase something invisible, a dream no one believed in but her. At the bus station, the air smelled of roasted corn and diesel. Zanil clutched her small ticket tightly, afraid she might lose it. When the bus arrived, she climbed aboard and found a seat by the window. As the engine started, she watched Kumara fade into the distance. The streets, the garage, her father's shadow. The night swallowed the road ahead, but she didn't look back. Inside her chest, fear and hope battled silently. She didn't know what waited in Nibiri, but one thing was clear. She would rather fail chasing her dream than live small in the place that doubted her. Life in Nibiri was hard from the start. The city was loud, fast, and full of people chasing their own dreams. Zanil found a small room to rent near the bus station, and started working at an auto parts factory. The job was tiring, the air smelled of oil and smoke, and the machines never stopped humming. Her hands were always sore, but she didn't complain. Every evening, when her shift ended, she stayed a little longer, cleaning up slowly so she could use the leftover scraps and metal pieces. While others rushed home to rest, she sat near the machines, shaping small car models from the discarded parts. Each one was a tiny version of the car she dreamed of building one day. During lunch breaks, she ate quickly and pulled out her notebook, sketching new ideas before the whistle blew again. Her coworkers teased her, saying she worked too hard for nothing, but she didn't care. In her heart, she felt something powerful growing, a quiet belief that she was meant for more than factory work. One afternoon, while she was testing a small model engine she had built from spare parts, someone was watching from the doorway. It was Mr. Osei, the factory manager. He was known as a strict man who rarely smiled, but that day he looked impressed. He walked over and picked up one of her small car models, turning it carefully in his hand. "You made this?" he asked. Zanil nodded, nervous but proud. For a moment he said nothing, then gave a small smile. "You have a rare gift," he told her softly. The next morning, he called her into his office and handed her a paper. It was a recommendation letter for an internship at Sahara Motors, the country's most respected car company. Zanil stared at the letter, unable to breathe. Her heart raced as she realized this could be her way into the world she had only dreamed of. Her hands trembled as she held the paper, but not from fear this time. It was the feeling that life was finally opening its doors. Destiny had come quietly, in the sound of machines and the kindness of one man who saw what her father never did. Her endless potential. Zanil's first day at Sahara Motors felt like stepping into another world. The building was full of shining cars, glass walls, and people who spoke the language of innovation. She could hardly believe she was there. When she met Madame Keone, the famous engineer who had built Africa's first electric car, her heart almost stopped. Keone was tall, confident, and spoke with authority. Everyone respected her. She looked at Zanil with sharp eyes, the kind that saw everything. "Show me your ideas," she said without smiling. Zanil handed over her sketches nervously. Madame Keone studied each page carefully, then took out a red pen. She began marking lines in circles, crossing out whole parts. "Too safe, too simple. You're thinking like a repairer, not a creator," she said firmly. Each word stung, but Zanil listened closely. She didn't want praise, she wanted to learn. That night, she stayed up late in her small apartment, reworking every design. Her hands were tired, her eyes heavy, but she couldn't stop. She wanted to impress the woman who represented everything she dreamed of becoming. Days turned into weeks. Every time she presented new sketches, Keone found something wrong. "This lacks courage," she would say. "Cars must speak strength." It was hard, but Zanil refused to give up. She read books, studied models, and spent hours in the workshop watching how each part connected. Sometimes she felt defeated, wondering if she truly belonged there, but deep inside, a voice kept telling her not to quit. One morning, after many sleepless nights, Zanil brought a new design, bold curves, strong lines, and a sense of movement that even surprised her. Keone studied it in silence. Zanil held her breath, waiting for the red pen to appear again. But this time, Keone smiled slightly and said, "Now this is power." The room felt brighter in that moment. Zanil's chest filled with pride and relief. For the first time, she wasn't the mechanic's daughter being told she couldn't do it. She was a creator whose work had meaning. She walked out of Keone's office that day with her head high, feeling like the world had finally started to see what she always knew. She was born to build something that would change lives. Months passed quickly, filled with hard work, sleepless nights, and endless sketches. Zahara Motors finally announced a grand event, a national showcase for young designers to present their new electric car ideas. The winner's design would be turned into a real car, carrying their name across the country. For Zanil, it felt like her whole life had been leading to this moment. She poured every piece of her heart into her project, naming it the Simba One. To her, it wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of strength, courage, and the power to rise after being doubted. The days before the showcase were tense. She worked long hours at the design studio, checking every detail again and again. On the morning of the event, she wore a simple black dress, her hands shaking slightly as she stood backstage. Around her were other young designers from across Africa, all full of hope. The hall was filled with cameras, journalists, and company executives waiting to see the future of African engineering. When her turn came, Zanil stepped onto the stage, her voice steady but her heart racing. She spoke about her car, not just how it worked but what it represented. She told them it was born from struggle and belief, from the fire that comes when people say you can't do something. When the judges announced the results, Zanil couldn't breathe. The hall went silent for a moment before the host smiled and said, "First place goes to Zanil Ndlovu for the Simba One." The crowd erupted in cheers. She froze, tears filling her eyes as people clapped and cameras flashed. The CEO of Zahara Motors walked up and handed her a golden plaque, announcing that the company would produce her design under her own name. Backstage, Zanil couldn't hold her emotions. She covered her face with her hands, crying softly, not out of sadness but deep gratitude. In her mind, she heard her father's old words, "You'll never make it without me." But now the world wanted her signature on a car. She smiled through her tears, whispering to herself, "I made it, Baba." It wasn't revenge she felt, it was peace. Her journey had turned doubt into destiny. The small town of Kumara buzzed with excitement. Everyone was talking about one thing, the local girl who had built her own car. People gathered in shops and on street corners, repeating the news with pride. "Zanil from Manla's garage did it," they said again and again. Her name was on the radio, in the newspapers, and even on posters in the city. Children pointed at her photo and smiled. In that same small garage where her story began, her father, Mandla, worked quietly, pretending not to listen. The radio played softly beside him, the announcer praising his daughter's success. His hands moved slowly over the old taxi engine he was fixing, but his mind was far away. Each word about Zanil felt heavy with pride and regret. He remembered the day she walked away, the anger in her eyes, the pain in his own heart. He had been so sure she would fail, so sure that dreams were only meant to disappoint. But now his little girl had done something no one in Kumara had ever done. She had created a car with her own hands, and the whole country was talking about it. Mandla wiped his face with his sleeve, though there was no sweat, only emotion he couldn't show. The next morning was quiet. The sun had just risen when a deep, smooth sound broke the silence. The sound of an engine unlike any he had heard before. It didn't rattle like the taxis he fixed. It roared with power. Mandla looked up, confused, and stepped outside the garage. Down the dusty road came a gold and black car that shone like the morning sun. The crowd began to gather, whispering in awe. The car stopped right in front of him, and when the door opened, Zanil stepped out wearing a calm smile. For a moment, Mandla couldn't move. He just stared, his wrench slipping from his hand. She walked closer, her eyes soft, her presence strong. The people of Kumara watched in silence as father and daughter faced each other again after so many years. The car behind her gleamed proudly, a symbol of everything he once said she couldn't do. And in that moment, Mandla finally realized that the girl he once doubted had become the woman who changed their world. Mandla froze, his wrench slipping from his hand and clattering to the dusty ground. The sound seemed louder than any engine roar, echoing through the quiet street. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. Zanil stepped closer, her hands steady, holding out a single key. "For you, Baba," she said softly, her eyes shining with warmth and pride. "The car you always dreamed of, built by the daughter you doubted." The words hung in the air, heavier than any engine or metal. Manla's mouth opened, then closed again. No words came. Around them, the townspeople gathered slowly, whispering to one another in disbelief. Children peeked from behind carts, elders stopped sweeping their porches, and friends of Manla's watched with wide eyes. Everyone had heard the story of the girl who left, who had been told she could never succeed. Now they were seeing the impossible, her standing before her father, offering him the very dream he had once said she would never reach. Manla's heart raced, and a strange warmth spread through his chest. He looked at the car, polished and shining, reflecting the sunlight in golden streaks. Every detail reminded him of late nights in the garage, the times he had doubted her, the harsh words he had spoken. And now here she was, proving not only her talent but her love. For the first time in many years, his pride overwhelmed him. Tears fell freely, hot and real, landing on the dusty street where his daughter had once walked away, angry and hurt. He could not speak, could not move, could only watch as Zanil smiled, patience and forgiveness written on her face. The crowd murmured, moved by the scene, as the air filled with a sense of victory, reconciliation, and hope. Manla reached slowly for the key, his hands trembling. He held it carefully, as if it were more precious than gold. Looking up at Zanil, he felt a mix of regret, awe, and gratitude. He realized he had been wrong to doubt her, wrong to hold her back, and now it was too late for words to undo the past. But the moment mattered more than anything. A father witnessing the brilliance of the child he once underestimated, a daughter showing love and strength beyond measure. The car, the key, the tears, everything became a symbol of dreams fulfilled, trust rebuilt, and a bond stronger than doubt itself. Inside the new car, Manla ran his hands over the smooth dashboard, feeling the weight of every detail. The leather was soft under his fingers, the buttons and dials perfectly placed, and the engine's hum beneath the hood hinted at power he had only dreamed of. He looked at Zanil, his voice low and shaky. "You did this without me?" he whispered, disbelief and awe mixed in every word. His eyes searched hers, trying to understand how the girl he had once doubted had achieved something so incredible. Zanil's lips curved into a gentle smile. "No, Baba. I did this because of you," she said softly, her words carrying both love and respect. Manla turned his gaze back to the car, his mind racing through years of harsh words, raised voices, and moments he had tried to control her path. He realized how much he had feared the world outside their small garage, how he had thought keeping her close and limiting her would protect her from failure and pain. But all it had done was push her toward proving herself without his blessing. His voice trembled as he confessed, "I was afraid you'd get hurt by the world. I thought keeping you small would keep you safe." The words carried regret, fear, and a father's love that had been hidden behind strict rules and doubt. He had not realized that his caution had almost cost him seeing her true potential. Zanil reached over and squeezed his hand gently. "But sometimes we must break what cages us, even if it's love," she said, her voice calm and certain. Her eyes shone with understanding, showing him that she had grown strong not because of rebellion, but because of courage and resilience. Manla listened, letting the words sink in. He felt a mixture of pride and humility, pride for the brilliant woman his daughter had become, and humility for the times he had tried to hold her back. The car around them felt more than metal and leather. It was a symbol of trust, of dreams realized, and of lessons learned. Manla looked at Zanil again, tears glistening in his eyes. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the hum of the engine and the golden light of the late afternoon, they understood each other without more words. The past's doubts had faded, replaced by a shared respect, a love that had survived mistakes, and a bond strengthened by the courage to let go. That night, Zanil and Manla drove through the quiet streets of Kumara together. The city lights flickered softly, reflecting off the shiny surface of her gold and black car. The engine's hum felt like music, steady and strong, carrying them forward as the town slowly passed by. For Manla, every turn of the wheel was a mix of awe and wonder. He had watched his daughter leave years ago with anger in her eyes, and now she was beside him, guiding the car confidently through the streets they both knew so well. The headlights cut a bright path into the darkness, illuminating the dusty roads, the houses, and the fields beyond. People peeked out of windows and doors, pointing and whispering, recognizing the car and the girl who had made it. Soon children ran alongside them, their laughter filling the night air. "Zenil! Zenil!" they shouted, chasing the car with excitement and joy. Each cheer reminded Mandla of the years he had doubted her, of the dreams he had tried to hold back, and of the incredible journey she had taken to prove herself. Mandla looked at her, and for the first time in years, pride shone in his eyes. He realized that he had witnessed something extraordinary, a daughter who had turned struggle into strength, fear into courage, and doubt into achievement. His chest swelled with admiration and love as he whispered, "Now teach me how to dream again." His words were soft, humble, and full of hope, asking her to show him the world he had been too cautious to embrace. Zenil smiled, feeling warmth and peace in that moment. Her hands rested firmly on the steering wheel, steady and sure, as she guided the car through the familiar streets. The journey felt different this time, lighter, freer, and full of possibility. The road that had once carried her away now welcomed her home, carrying both their hearts toward a new beginning. As they drove, the night seemed alive with promise. The laughter of children, the gentle glow of streetlights, and the hum of the engine blended into a perfect rhythm. Every mile reminded them that life could be rebuilt, love could be restored, and dreams could grow stronger than fear. In that simple ride through Kumara, father and daughter shared more than a drive. They shared understanding, respect, and a bond that would last forever. The past's doubts had vanished, replaced by hope, courage, and a future bright enough to follow at full speed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next video, and take care until then.